It's no secret that 2020 has changed just about everything, including the way we're approaching the holidays. If you're like me, you're feeling a little apprehensive about what's ahead this month. Is it even possible to follow through on our regular traditions or to create that season of memories for your family this year? On top of all that, what if your husband's attitude is turning out to be more Grinch than Santa after all the stress? We're going to talk about that and a lot of things in this very special episode of the WifeSavers Podcast. Enjoy.
Bags are packed, are you ready to go? This time tomorrow we'll be on the road, riding with you in the sunnier days. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Welcome to the WifeSavers Podcast, where multi-award-winning author and global marriage educator Ramona Zabriskie provides answers to your real wife questions. Our goal is to help you appreciate your womanhood, prioritize your personal development, and craft a powerful partnership with the man in your life. Hi, I'm Hannah Allen, and I'm proud to introduce my parents, Ramona and Dale Zabriskie. And yes, this is how they talk all the time. Let's listen.
Taking the good with the ups and downs.
Hey, everybody. It's Ramona Zabriskie. Welcome to the WifeSavers Podcast. Now, usually I rely on Honey to get us started, but I've actually kicked him out today. He's getting me a Christmas tree. I'm going to tell you that story in a minute. And instead, I have brought some of my favorite women. I call them successful women, successful wives, because they've learned a lot and they've learned the hard way. And actually, when we added up how many years the five of us have been married, it came to close to 150 years, like 138 years. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Let me introduce you to the members of my team that are here with me today. We have Emily, who's going to give you a little wave. We're on camera today as well as doing an audio recording. Deb, Rosemary, and Lucretia. And you know what? We didn't add up how old we are when we put all that together. That would have been really ancient, huh? Those are just our married years, 138. Well, we hope that with that cumulative experience, we're going to be able to help our wife saver today, who has sent us this question that is so appropriate for this most wonderful time of the year. Here it goes. You ready, ladies? Listen close. I feel creating family memories falls on me. Christmas prep, fun outings. He doesn't participate or only grumpily. What can I do? Sounds like we got a Grinch on our hands. How many of us have husbands who don't really get the vision of Christmas? And then I know some of us might have husbands that really go over the top. And it can go totally the other direction. I saw a Hallmark movie just about that very thing this week. But I'm excited to help her. I think that we can go even a little beyond the question, you guys, to stretch out not only this particular situation with a wife who's wishing her husband were a little more engaged, a little more involved in the whole holiday hullabaloo, but also I want to extrapolate it out, and because this is a year that's a little frustrating for all of us. Even if our husbands are excited about Christmas, even then, things are stressful for everyone. 2020, my goodness, what a different year, and it's ending now, and we're excited to have it ending, but a lot of what we've been dealing with all year is continuing, from sickness to unemployment to, a lot of political upheaval. So a lot going on for all of us. And I want to help our listeners, give them some ideas for making it an even better year for their family, their husband, their marriage, and for them, right? We want our lady listeners, all the women that um, that really love what we do at Lifesavers, to have a very happy Christmas and a happy New Year. So that's going to be our objective in the next little bit. And to kick us off, I wanted to share a story of something that happened just to me this week in my marriage. Little test. I we lost a loved one this week, actually, and I was having to do literal physical labor in helping with her stuff and her home and everything. And that was over the Thanksgiving holiday. So I was super emotional over the holidays and emotionally exhausted over Thanksgiving. And I had been working very, very hard all day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And by Sunday night, I said, I just want to put up the Christmas tree. It'll make everything better. So while I was doing some dishes in another room, honey decided to put up the Christmas tree. Well, we normally have a live tree, but last year we were very empty nesters, really alone for the first time on Christmas. And so we decided, oh, let's just get a artificial tree. And I thought it was lovely, our artificial tree. So he got it out, he put it up, but he made one fatal error. He didn't fluff it. He did not fluff it. And I had no idea he was working on it. So I come in from the kitchen breezily, with totally unsuspecting, and I round the corner, and there it is, the unfluffed fake tree. It was so pathetic, you guys. It was so pathetic. I just started bawling. I just melted. And my poor honey, he couldn't understand what I was crying about necessarily, because he was like, ta-da! And I'm just sobbing, and I could hardly get out the words, really, that, because I didn't even know what I was feeling. It took me, I don't know, a couple minutes before I could finally articulate that somehow that tree looked so pathetic in the corner. There was a big corner and this little fake unfluffed tree. It represented 2020 to me. I think way too poetically. That tree was like a metaphor for the whole year to me. And I was so sad, and I couldn't even express myself other than crying. I just went to my recliner in the living room and I curled up in it. And this is how tired I was. I'm sure I cried just because I was tired. I just fell asleep, like, bam. I cried myself to sleep within seconds. And he hovered basically over me the whole time I was asleep, stayed very close by. I was so worried. And when I finally start to come out of it, like, I don't know, 30 minutes later, it's just a little nap, I start waking up. He's right there. And I'm kind of looking at him, blurry-eyed. And he says, I checked the weather. It's going to be good weather all week, so we can go out to the live Christmas tree farm and get a tree. I can't believe it. Because here's the funny thing. I'd had a nap now. I'm back to my normal self. And what my gut instinct was to say, oh, that's okay. I can live with the fig tree. I'm sorry I made such a fuss about it. I was just tired. But I stopped. I held my tongue in that split second and made the choice to appreciate the gesture he was making, what he was trying to do for me. So that's, there's a lot of complications in Christmas. And isn't that ironic? Christmas is supposed to be simple. That's the time we celebrate simple ideas. We're supposed to be thinking about family, thinking about love. That's so different than what it actually turns out to be when we start making too big a deal about everything, from symbols to the things we do. And I kind of feel that in this question. Simple Christmas has become a complex Christmas, not only in calendaring events and so forth, but emotionally complex. there's a lot of expectations and ideals involved. So do you hear that? What do you hear in her question? Emily, what do you hear?
Well, first of all, I was thinking that if maybe she's a little newer to WifeSavers, some people are, and it seems to be in the beginning of WifeSavers, a lot of women just think, why is it on me? A lot of what you teach us is that we have power, that we can affect change, that we are the creators and we have kind of what it takes to create relationships and make them what we want them to be. And so I think she's expressing that. I feel that this is on me. And I think that kind of indicates a couple of things. It could indicate she already senses her own power. She already senses that she could actually, it is up to her as the mom, the woman, to create the fun for the kids and all of that. And that's hopefully somewhat exciting for her. But then she also feels this burden, but it's on me. And I don't want to do everything. And it would make me happy to see my husband doing it with me and enjoying it. And so you can take it both ways. But I think as a new WifeSaver, even someone who's seasoned, it's just a great time to kind of explore ideas of how we can turn this into something that, is empowering, something you can plan for, something that you can anticipate with joy and invite others to be involved in the family.
That's the ideal. And that's that's where we want to get to by the end of our time together. But have you been in this situation where you did feel anybody got a grouchy husband? He's a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Yeah. Or Deb, didn't you have a dad like that?
My dad is so awesome, and he really was a good sport, all things considered. But growing up, I knew fair well that if we were going to start talking Christmas decorations, there was going to be some grumbles. He hated having to deal with the decorations and the shopping. And those are his two main points. And we just knew that was going to be hard. And he would grumble and he would moan. And over time, it became the funny, and we nicknamed him Mr. Grinch, and we get him little Grinch things. But yeah, that was just his personality. He just, for some reason, who knows, that those were things that he always felt there was so much around that he really struggled with.
Okay, so you said, who knows? Who knows? Well, let's try and think of all the reasons that we can of what is it that would make, and sometimes it's not necessarily always the husband. In this case it is, but what kind of what influences keep someone from really relishing Christmas?
I think in any year you get this high level of expectation of, am I going to be able to meet this magical whatever that my parents did when I was little, or that I want to do for my wife and kids, or whatever it may be, that there is a really high level sometimes
that you can end up sort of resenting.
Or just fear of, am I going to be able to do that, or am I going to disappoint them again?
Interesting. Who knows? Like you said, maybe he had a dad who could, and he saw that his mom was never satisfied with what his dad did or contributed. So he's in his head like, women, why even bother? Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too. A lot of times it has to do with your family memories. Christmas is so much about our family memories, and every family does it a little differently. So in my house, my dad put the lights on the tree, and it was his thing. He would put the lights on the tree and we would do all the rest of the decorating. And when I first got married, I thought my husband was going to put the lights on the tree, because don't dads put the lights on the tree? And it turned out that no, that wasn't really his thing. His dad didn't put the lights on the tree. And so I think every family, when you come together in marriage, you're bringing her family traditions and his family traditions, and you have to figure out a way to make new ones. It may not be everything you had when you were a child. It may not be everything he had when he was a child. You make your own new traditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's keep that in mind as we move forward. I know there's a lot of deeper reasons too, obviously, that people struggle in the holidays. They've had trauma in their background that is associated with Christmas or near Christmas. I know, Emily, you've lost family in the month of December, right? Not this December, but in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. I lost my brother and my only sibling the first year I was married. And I also lost a stepdad in December. So we've had loss. I've had a major surgery in December, right before Christmas. So those are all things that sometimes affect me during December and sometimes they don't. So
interesting.
Making space for that is really important. And I think too, like Rosemary said, when she got married, she maybe assumed her husband was just going to put up the lights. And how many of us really talk about these expectations as we approach the holidays or our past or whatever, and we can flesh that out a little more as we talk. But I just think it's interesting how we do. I don't know that we even realize we have these expectations in our mind, or we have these past traumas that we come with, but we don't necessarily express it. And then we're just disappointed.
So you're recommending that we actually communicate?
Well, I think that's the WifeSavers way. I think that's why we do the podcast, right? So we can learn how to communicate better about some of these issues we have. But
so how do we approach that? How do we approach that then with our husband? All right, like we're talking to our letter writer, and she says, what can I do? How should she approach him about this? What might be an effective approach? Any ideas, Deb?
Well, you start with the language of respect that you teach in so many ways. So to even begin with the language of respect, you have to first know what you want. And sometimes that really helps. Like if you're just coming up, oh, I want Christmas to be magical. Make it magical for me,
that's
honey.
Too broad.
It's not going to get there. Or I want to create lots of memories. Okay.
He doesn't even know how to act on that. Yes.
If you sit down and really take some time, like, okay, this year I want to make sure that we do X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And
that those X, Y, and Z are really important to you.
Yeah.
For instance. Okay.
I think you've got a much better starting point than when you use that language of respect. Honey, it would mean so much to me if we could do this. And especially if you are here present for this one thing, or if you take care of this one thing for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought I was going to say that's really important. You've got to start with you. You've got to know what she has to know what she wants.
Okay.
And sometimes that's not always clear, especially if you've been a people pleaser and you want to make sure that everybody else is happy and so on. So that you want to make sure, because that's when they'll kind of let down, like, well, everybody else had a good time, but maybe you didn't. So even though she's doing this, why is she doing it? Like, all of the things that she has to plan. Okay, why is she doing it? And, what does she hope to happen? And, really get into, you call it soul work, and it really is soul work. What's behind some of these things? Is it just because this is the way you've always done it and this is just part of Christmas to you or whatever? So yeah, she needs to start, like Deb said, she needs to start with herself before she even can go to her husband and express anything, because she's got to be clear on what she needs and what she wants.
I love that. I think personally, and I know Rosemary will back me up on this, that kind of soul work is most effectively done in some kind of journaling, right?
Absolutely.
It's good to think it through, but writing it out, because I think if you took the time to do that, and I think it'd be healthy for all of us, even if we're feeling like we've got Christmas under control this year, or we don't have any concerns about our husband and Christmas, it would still be healthy for us to really reflect. What are some of the things we might reflect on? Rosemary, do you think?
I think there are so many expectations throughout this season that, like Lucretia said, we become people pleasers and we want to do everything for everybody. And we think that each little thing will matter to everyone in the family. And in reality, there are probably a few things that make Christmas feel like Christmas to me, and some that will feel like Christmas to my children, and some that will feel like Christmas to my husband. And if we could journal sort of a threefold list, like I know that as long as the kids have an afternoon where we make gingerbread and an afternoon of, whatever the other thing is where we drive around and look at Christmas lights in the safety of our car, that will mean Christmas to them. And that list of 50 other things that I thought I had to do really doesn't have to be done. It's really those things that are going to make Christmas feel like Christmas to them. Make our list, our children's list, and then try to guess with your husband before you approach him. Like I've noticed, it always seems important to you that we have ham on Christmas. Is that really important to you?
I love
Does that make it feel like Christmas to you? And then between all of that, you merge the three expectations, because it doesn't matter what they're doing in the Hallmark movies, and it doesn't matter what they're doing in the rest of the world. It just matters on what's important to you, your husband, and your children.
Oh, I love that. But you just barely skimmed it. But the idea of comparing and what you see on television or what you see on social media, it's just not important. I love finding out what really, really is important. And we might have, I'm thinking too, that as I'm journaling, I might reflect, as Lucretia suggested, more on why. What is my motivation? Why am I just blowing this up? Part of it may be because I was disappointed when I journal. See, I'm journaling, so I discovered this. I hadn't peeled back the onion before. Now I'm realizing that I was disappointed in my Christmases as a child. And I thought, when I grow up, it's going to be like this, kind of thing. And we're trying to recreate something. That's not necessarily true for me or anybody, but that's the kind of things you're going to find out when you do the sort of reflection that you're considering. And out of those reflections come these lists now that you can actually do something with. Emily, you were telling us about your little guy and how you found out what he really wanted as far as Christmas, celebration goes.
Yeah, it wasn't my husband. Yeah, it wasn't my husband, but it was my son. My oldest child is a boy, and he's a very serious thinker and articulate kind of boy. But it was interesting because this year, I think, like you said, it's 2020 and we're just looking for something to make us feel better. So I have been really excited about Christmas this year, which was a triumph for me personally, because last year I wasn't as excited. But this year I thought, okay, let's put up the tree early. Let's go look at Christmas lights. And I mentioned this to my family, and my son said, Mom, it's not time. We need to wait till after Thanksgiving. It's just not time yet. And he said it several times. And I thought, this is really important to him. And I think the old me without my WifeSavers studies would probably have just pushed it because it's what I wanted. But I tried to really respect the fact that for him, there was something symbolic in having Thanksgiving first and then Christmas. And so we waited. We waited, in fact, even several days after, before I finally said, okay, can we go look at Christmas lights now? Can we set up the tree? And then once he was ready, they were all in, and, they all set up the tree together. And my husband does help set up the tree, by the way. He's great at that. But anyway, I really appreciate the teachings I've had to help me step back and say that he's expressing a need. He's expressing something that's important to him. And I want to respect that and show him that we can do different things, different years for different members that go with what they feel. Because I know what it feels like to have Christmas pushed on you. And
imposed on you.
Yes. So hard.
Wow.
So,
I love the direction we're going here, because first we talked about, you guys brought out how important it is to start with you. What is it that you really need, what you really want, and why? That's where we get into this reflection, the journaling, and so forth. But the whole purpose behind that is not to just get what we want, right? The real purpose behind that is to soften us up, open our own hearts, so that we have a little more room to incorporate others' needs and desires. We're not so focused on fighting for what we need In this case, our letter writer she wants him to do this, to get involved. So here we go. We're all going to go out to go caroling or go look at the Christmas lights, and everybody's putting on their hats and their coats. And honey, it's time to go. Honey, we're leaving. Are you coming? He's like, do I have to, that kind of thing. And she's like, what is wrong with you? This is going to be fun. This is more to the kids. Come on. Just get on your coat and everything. And he's like, and then inside, what is she thinking? Like, why does this always happen? She may actually articulate, say, why do you do this to us? Every year you make such a big deal about it. The point I'm making is how ineffective that is. That you cannot wait until the moment of frustration. So much that goes into a successful family life is thinking ahead. It's being a little proactive. So here we are. There's still plenty of time. It's early December. We've got a long time to go still. So now is the time to talk about these things with the family, to really listen. Help me understand. And it may actually sort of soften him up, don't you think? To get him to reminisce a little himself, to reflect a little himself. Not that he's going to get all touchy-feely necessarily or verbose and poetic about his childhood, but getting him to say, what did you do as a kid that you liked or that you didn't like? And by the way, honey, this is about the kids. I want to do everything I can to give you the peaceful, quiet time you need over the holidays. Is that important to you? Then let's see how we can do that. But at the same time, let's keep the primary focus on memories for our children. And what did you do as a child that you think would be nice or fun for the kids? He may be a little less grumpy, grinchy, if you soften him up a little that way with memories of his own childhood. Or you may find out that there was something in the childhood that's interfering with his ability to really relax into the holiday as an adult, right? But that takes some proactive, that's not going to happen in the moment that everyone's putting on their shoes and their boots and their mittens to go out the door, right? I'm getting a lot of head nodding, I hope, also from listeners on that. So
we're going to break now for just a minute so I can invite you to my free live masterclass, Understanding Your Husband and Sons. In my work with women in over 70 countries, I found that most of us, when it comes to our husbands and sons, think like Carol in Kenya.
I was expecting him to think like me, behave like me.
Or Dana in Idaho.
Shouldn't we just be the same? And shouldn't we just agree?
Or Anne in Oregon.
I grew up in a culture where there was a lot of eye rolling and sighing about guys.
And that's too bad, because when we act or react based on false expectations, we end up feeling like Catherine or Farinaz.
I didn't feel I could relate to him because I didn't understand him.
Thought maybe he had to do something with me, and I was taking it personally.
Or getting riled up like Carol.
Made me mad. It's crazy. It was frustrating,
And acting like Anne.
I used to think he should know what I wanted without me having to ask.
Which just erodes our relationships and blows up our dreams. So that's why I created Understanding Your Husband and Sons, a super fun, eye-popping deep dive into his brain, body, and emotional makeup. Women have been coming from all over the world and coming away from our time together with an exhilarating sense of hope and power, because now women like Amber, Ann, Dana, and Allison understand
how to communicate my needs, how to be clear about it, how not to be run around, how not to manipulate.
The way I communicate with him isn't any more aggressive or threatening to him.
I can see why he's reacting or why he's responding that way.
That's helped to avoid a lot of the hurt feelings that I used to have.
So if, like Jeannie, you're thinking,
okay, I need to reboot how I think about marriage and men and how they're loved,
please join me at this free live masterclass, Understanding Your Husband and Sons.
I'll teach you things you have never heard before and that you won't hear anywhere else. Science and strategies that will knock your socks off and make all the difference in your relationships.
And it just changes everything about how I see him.
There's this huge potential that I was not really tapping into because I didn't fully understand it.
I think the biggest piece is this understanding and appreciation.
We're both so much happier now.
And in how you see yourself.
My confidence as a woman has skyrocketed.
We've made it so easy. Just go to wifesavers.org/masterclass and choose a day and time. I'll meet you there and even answer your questions live. Because like Carol in Kenya or Cindy in Argentina, you'll want to be able to say,
Oh, we are wired differently. And that's the beauty of life.
And it set me free. It allowed me to say, okay, I understand now. And I loved him more than ever.
wifesavers.org/masterclass.
Oh, I recommend it to everyone I meet.
So you guys have made some fabulous points, including the idea of, I loved, Emily, what you were saying about Christmas for your little guy, tuning into that. And that's sort of an important tradition to him. But the whole point is we don't have to impose tradition, right? Tradition is made for us, not us for tradition. You know, we're the important thing. So how do we do that? How do we create this year's Christmas that's about this year and not feel like we sacrificed something? What do you think, Rosemary?
So if we go back to that, that idea of 3 different lists, in those lists, you would also discover, if you're journaling from the heart, doing that soul work, which ones, first of all, are the most important, and then which ones might need to be adapted a little for 2020. We're doing a lot of things a little differently this year, and yet we still can do them. You know, so maybe it's, we always got together with Grandma to make cookies together. So you do it together on Zoom or Google Duo or whatever your video call of choice is. and you set it up, and together you're making the cookies, and you're splashing the flour around, and you're having the fun. But another point I wanted to make too about what you were saying is that when you're journaling that, you can also put next to the ones that you want your husband to participate in, so that you can talk to him ahead of time. Because I find that a lot of them, I thought we needed my husband to participate in every single activity. And really, he doesn't have to. And there's a couple that really would mean so much if he would be part of these. And then, like you said, we can approach him ahead of time with the language of respect and say, you know, whatever it is, I'll put up the tree, I'll bake the cookies. But if you would come with us when we go look at Christmas lights, that really means a lot to the kids. And we just have so much fun. I'll make a thermos of hot cocoa. And you sort of build it up to him ahead of time so that he's prepared. My husband does not like to be taken by surprise.
Yes.
And I think a lot of husbands are that way.
Yes. Good.
Such a great point. Sometimes we're like, okay, we've got all these plans. We've made the list. We've made a schedule. And all of a sudden we're rushing out the door as soon as our husband gets home. Honey, okay, now let's go do this. And he's like, wait, what just happened? Where are we going now?
That's so good. Didn't we just go do blah, blah last night? And you're like, yeah, we only have 25 days. We got to do something every day.
Some husbands may not have that kind of flexibility in their work life or schedules anyway. I mean, there's greatly reduced amounts of travel now, but some may be traveling. Some may get really busy in December, if they're in corporate America or, whatever, if they're in, business or something like that, or retail sales, maybe December is one of the most stressful times for them. So,
and it may be that you really need his help and partnership, not just, it would be nice if you came, but you may really need him to take over something for you this year because it's your busy, your job gets busy in December and your employment is keeping you late or whatever. Honey, I really need you to take the kids or do this or that with them. So now we come back to the things that we've talked about in many other podcasts. And as Deb referred to it correctly, the language of respect, where you can say, it would mean a lot to me, or I would appreciate it if, or, where you set up your needs, you say it very clearly, directly, succinctly, unemotionally. You don't have to give him all the reasons. Okay, that's another thing that we talk about in effective communications, relationship wise, especially with our husbands, is you don't have to give him all the justification. Just talk to the big dog, as Dale says, just talk to the big dog and tell him, I need you on this day at this time to do this with this child or whatever. And then, will you do that? And he says yes or no or whatever. And then we have appreciation, and we are grateful. We tell him how grateful we are. We tell him how grateful we are after it happens. We tell him how grateful we are 3 days later. And that makes it a pleasant thing for him. So don't be afraid, is all I'm saying. Or here's our letter writer who's saying, I have to do all of this. Well, if there's something you really, really actually need, not just a nice to, but really need, you better express it through the language of respect clearly. And I know you all have had lots of experience with that and can all testify to how important it is and how effective it is. So,
yeah. And Ramona, I would just add not just the language of respect, but a timing that shows respect.
Yeah.
So find an appropriate time when he's already relaxed and unwinding and all of that, to approach him about, here's what December I'd like it to look like. Would you participate in these things? Obviously, that's not best timed when he first walks in the door or when the kids are, all clamoring around or something like that too. So I think it includes language of respect, but also appropriate timing to get the best response.
I think we better start. I say that all the time, but I've never thought of it putting a phrase to it. Let's call it the timing of respect.
Yeah, I think so. And, you were talking about how this questioner said, well, it's all on me. And I'm thinking to myself, a lot of the suggestions we're sitting here giving are, it is on you. But we're asking you to put your energy in a different place, wife saver friend. I think that's what we're doing, is you're spending the energy, most likely, I'm guessing, fighting his resistance most of the month as you're trying to go out the door. Like you said, the energy is going to the reactive place. You're fighting those responses. Whereas if you proactively plan, you sit and journal at the beginning of the month, you spend your time and energy doing your soul work and figuring out what's most important and choose your top 3 or 5 things, and then approach it. Yes, it is still on you. We're not really saying you can just not have it be on you. But if you put your energy in a different place, in a proactive place, you're going to have a very different response. We hope, and we've tried and it's worked. And then you're not fighting it the whole way. And hopefully you can really make a great memory instead of, we dragged him out the door and we did this thing, but it wasn't very fun, like hopefully the one thing he does say he can commit to will actually be really enjoyable for everyone.
Yes. And so before we let go, was there someone else? Go ahead, Lucretia.
I just wanted to say, and this woman, our questioner is a WifeSaver member. But if you're not a WifeSaver member and you're listening to this could all sound very overwhelming. And one of the things that I can, attest to is that, peace sometimes doesn't come until we gain more skills. I mean, it's sometimes just a lack of skills, and there's a lot of skills. This all, the way you describe it, Ramona, is really easy to hear and implement. It sounds easy to implement, but in your course, this comes a long time after. We first talk about different things. I mean,
there's a lot of foundation work and foundational principles, right?
There's just a lot of skills involved to get to the point that Emily's talking about, where you can step back and recognize that there is a timing, there is a way of speaking that's respectful, not only to your husband, but in terms of yourself. Because sometimes what ends up happening is the way we behave or the way we think is really a betrayal of ourselves.
So true.
It isn't in keeping with us in our own value system. We get done doing something, we say, oh, I did it again. And so it's really about, we want to have this be not only respectful for our husbands, but also as part of keeping with our value system of who we see ourselves as we are always growing. I mean, I'm the oldest one on this team here, and I'm still growing. I'm still learning, and that's, and hopefully we can be humble enough and to do that, to keep learning, because I still have many more skills I need to learn. And I'm grateful that I can participate in taking the course and doing the course.
Thank you so much. You just saved me doing a commercial. No, I'm teasing. Everything you're saying is 150% true. We are talking about some really effective, productive, peaceful approaches to solving all kinds of issues in your marriage. We just happen to be applying them to this particular question about Christmas and the holidays. But these go deep and broad, and the principles and the skill sets, as you put it, go work across the board. And we have students from literally all over the world that have found out how effective they are. So we do invite you to not be discouraged or overwhelmed. We invite you to come and discover the power you really do have in the WifeSavers course and community, and go down real deep with us into these things. It's thrilling and it's exciting, and it's incredibly rewarding when things start paying off and actually working in your life and improving. So the idea, though, the basic idea here, I think, is to take this Christmas for what it is, its own Christmas. If there are traditions that are precious to you, recognize it, figure that out, but be open to what's important to your husband as well, and be able to really communicate about that with him and with your children, and then sort of pare it down and make your lists, and then decide what it is that you really need his buy-in on and his participation in for whatever reason, whether it's you just want him to be part of the family, or whether you really, really do need him, or it's something that he really wants to do himself, So lots to consider there, lots of dynamics going on. And I think that's part of what stresses us so much at Christmas, because there's so many relationship dynamics at play as well. So what about, though, if there really is some trauma involved here that's sort of getting in the way of the joy and the goodwill and the merry and the bright that we're supposed to be feeling? What's something that you can do as a person, if that describes you, or that you could help a husband with, if that describes him? For instance, talking about husband or you, maybe there's unemployment this year. Maybe the Christmas budget just isn't there. There's a lot of people who just don't even really know where Christmas dinner is going to be coming from this year. That's not only discouraging, that's scary. What do you have any ideas if we're in that kind of situation? Or, like Emily was relating, something from the past that's kind of casts a shadow on everything. What do you all think? I know, Lucretia, you always preach a lot of self-compassion, for instance.
Yeah. Oh, this is a difficult time, because there are so many, I think, conflicting emotions. And one of the things that I feel at times we need to do is give ourselves permission to grieve. And you can do it with your journaling or so on, to acknowledge missing people that are no longer here. And I'm sure there are people that have lost loved ones this year that are not going to even be able to Zoom with. I mean, it's just, they can write them letters and do metaphysical kinds of things, but they're not here physically. And so we want to acknowledge that and acknowledge that that's a form of suffering that is real. And so we do want to have self-compassion. We want to have self-compassion for the little child in us that maybe woke up many Christmas mornings very disappointed. Or, whatever. It doesn't have to be super traumatic. It can be something very simple, but that is still in your memory that maybe has just not been resolved yet. And, and then of course, we all grew up as women and little girls with Disney and all the someday my prince will come kind of thing. Or, people have grown up with the idea that somebody will come along and make everything better, and that's just not fair to anybody to put that on anybody. We don't, if you have a higher power, it's really that higher power's obligation.
Yeah,
that's who can do that. But yeah, no, just to have some self-compassion, to recognize that, and that's why the soul work that we've talked about is so important, and why it's empowering to realize we have the power. Because
yes,
it's so easily to be disappointed by someone else.
Yes,
when, they might not even have the capability of even if they wanted to, they may not be able to give you what you need. And so it doesn't mean that they don't love you or whatever. It's just maybe they don't have the skill set. Maybe they don't have a skill set yet. We're talking about skill sets here. We recognize that our children don't have certain skill sets, but maybe we could recognize that our husband doesn't have skill sets yet to do some of the communicating that we're doing and so on. And fortunately, again, I'm going to plug the course again. You lovingly teach us how to teach our husbands.
Right.
What
we can do.
What we can do.
That's really what it's all about, what we can do, right? So learning where that falls, that's really the $25,000, or actually the $250,000 question, really. I love what you're saying about the self-compassion and treating yourself kindly and so forth. I want to connect the idea of self-care to that. So yes, the grieving and so forth, but even if you're in a pretty good place right now at Christmas, you're like, well, I'm not suffering. Still, I want to advocate the idea of self-compassion and self-care. What would that look like this season if you're a woman? What self-care? We call it delighting your heart in WifeSavers. How important is that? Let's have some ideas or discussion around that. What do you think, Deb?
I think it's going to look a little different for each of us depending on what really fills up our hearts. So for some of us, it's going to be trying to spend a little bit of extra time, maybe taking a walk around the block each day. Maybe it's going to be I'm going to do a special wrapping paper, or I'm going to make homemade Christmas cards because that's what I want to do. And if the kids need to go watch a movie, well, I can make a homemade Christmas card for 2 hours. Hey, it made me happy and they lived.
Yes, so good. That's so true. They're little things. That's what those delights are. Those very little things in time. Doesn't cost a lot of money, but it just makes us happy for just a moment. But it isn't just a moment. There might be a little high of a moment, but it continues to reverberate. And so if you can do 3 to 5 of those kind of little delights throughout the day, I guarantee, and you will all back me up on this, your stress level goes down, 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 down. And you have your ability to respond proactively, or to respond instead of react, like Emily was talking about, increases. It expands out just because you took the time to make your little Christmas card or whatever, or took that walk around the block, or listened to your favorite Christmas album while you're making dinner or whatever, has just such a tremendous impact. It's this little pocket-sized thing that has this huge ramification. Right, Emily? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it really does. And that is what's going to give her and us the strength, the energy to be this more proactive person, like I was talking about earlier, and actually do the soul work and everything. If you're coming in from a place of depletion, it's very hard to be a proactive person.
Be a generous person.
Yes, it really is. And so by doing your delights for yourself, practicing self-compassion, like Lucretia said, that may even look like saying to yourself in the mirror, it's okay if Christmas doesn't look the same this year, or it's okay if I'm not into this, or it's okay if I don't have my husband's support, and so I'm not going to do all these things, or we lost our job, so we're not going to do what we normally do. That's okay. This Christmas is different, and it's okay for it to be different. I would also just add, along with the delights, that some sort of inner practice of expressing gratitude in your heart for the things you do have, because no matter how much struggle you've been through, and I don't want to say that in a way that, belittles anyone's trials, or, losing someone, I've lost someone, I know it, you can't, that's a very hard place to be. But there are still things we can be grateful for. There are still small ways we can help others. And that's really what this season is about in my heart and in my life and in my home, is what I try to teach my kids, is this is the season of joy and giving and love. And it doesn't cost anything to write someone a note and tell them how they've blessed your life that year. It doesn't cost anything to, snap a picture of your family and text someone and just say, we just love you, or we miss you, or it's been so hard not to see you, or, just those little things you can do. That's going to bring you joy. That's going to fill you up and put you in a good place to then say, okay, kids, let's go do this Christmas thing. It really, I'm being a little dramatic, but it really is true. It really does help. The gratitude, the self-compassion, and just those small acts of kindness to others will really help.
So beautiful. Kindness towards others, and kindness towards yourself, and kindness towards your husband.
And
we forget, we leave him out of the equation, and all the goodwill toward men. Which man?
Yeah,
that man.
My man. But you may find that Christmas looks totally different this year, not just because of everything that's going on, but because you've approached it from such a different place. You've transformed what you thought Christmas had to be within your own heart. And then maybe your husband won't feel so like, oh, really again.
I have to say, we talk about delights all year long. And if you're not used to doing delights and you don't know what delights are, you don't know what delights your heart, now's the time. That's the perfect gift you can give yourself to find out. You mentioned, everyone loves Hallmark movies. I've had to swear off Hallmark movies because I have such envy. I have more of a traumatic past, and it's like, but I want that. I like what I'm watching, and it's like, oh, I never had that, or I want that, or, I'm totally the type of person that I can't watch this stuff and separate that's a movie and that's not real, because I just throw myself into the movie. My son is a cinematographer, and he calls me a director's dream because I feel everything that the movie maker wants me to feel and everything. So I've had to swear that off. And maybe the same with some, social media or whatever. When we're, like you started, I think you mentioned earlier about comparing ourselves. So much of it is helping ourselves to feel good, because when we don't feel good, it's so hard then for anyone else to do anything that helps us to feel good. But so, like you mentioned before, doing stuff that lifts us in the moment, whether it be listening to a piece of music, or viewing, like just looking outside your window. If you've got something nice that you like to look out outside your window. Rosemary's got her tea. We love Rosemary and her teapot.
I'm never without it.
Yes.
Okay. I think that this would be a really wonderful way to wrap up our discussion if each of us shared one or two things that bring us delight in the holiday season. And I really want to know. So, Rosemary, we know you love your tea. What else?
I love my tea in some sort of pretty cup. So you talk in the course about drops, delights, and dazzles.
Yes.
And drops being the smallest kind of pleasure that we bring ourselves, delights being the medium-sized ones, and the dazzles being big life dreams being accomplished. But you also say that drops are sometimes round. Yes. And I look at a snowflake-covered Polish pottery cup like this, and I think that's probably why I like it so much, because it's a round drop. And then, of course, it's filled with, in this case, peppermint tea. And that brings me a lot of pleasure. I also love listening to Christmas carols. And just, that doesn't take any money and it doesn't take any effort. And like you said, we can be doing housework or whatever and just turn it on. My favorites are Oh Holy Night and Do You Hear What I Hear? Those are two of my absolute favorites. And when I hear them, I feel lifted up. And I just wanted to add to what Lucretia was saying about, in the course, we talk about how it's not actually our husband's job to make us happy, like in a Hallmark movie or a Disney movie. We actually fill ourselves up with these delights and dazzles so that he can top us off. And I would just say that at Christmas, it's not his job to make us have the most fantastic Christmas ever. We actually have that power to fill ourselves up and then let him top us off with that little gift that he gives us on Christmas morning.
Oh, lovely. What an important reminder. And I do love your cup. It's just wonderful. And I think that is the psychologists tell us the round things bring us little bit of joy. I know it sounds strange, but it's proven. It's kind of fun. What about you, Deb?
Christmas lights.
Give me a delight.
Going to see Christmas lights. That's
Christmas
one of our
lights.
Things that we love every year. Just kind of driving around and seeing what we can find and throwing everyone in their PJs and turning the Christmas music up in the car.
That just sounds ideal. And Lucretia?
Oh, I'm, this is going to sound really strange. I'm really just discovering for the first time, really, because I really want to make this Christmas, as Emily said, different. And I just want to do things that fill me up this year. So I'm trying to be mindful, just everything that I'm doing. With the music, I've got my cup, that I've been using for teas. I just want to be mindful and take it all in and enjoy the feeling of it, the lights, the decorations, and just the goodwill. I think allowing, and the gratitude, and there's just all of it. But for me, it's just this. I'm really focusing this season and this time, really being mindful. And what is it that fills me up and makes me happy? I just think that's I'm trying to do everything kind of mindfully.
Oh, so beautiful. I love that idea of being intentional and present, because there's so much uncertainty. We don't know what 2021 is going to look like yet. We really don't know. And a lot of us don't know how, where our income's going to come from or whatever. And with all that uncertainty, being present is so important. It's so healing. It almost brings, it can bring, if you're focused on delights, and like Emily talked about, gratitude. There's this thing called hope that can enter that space instead of the worry. How about you, Emily?
That's lovely. I think you put your finger on the feeling that I appreciate most at this time of year that just fills me with delight. I think it is a feeling of hope that the new year is around the corner. Things can be different. Things can get better. I love that feeling. I also love the feeling of excitement that just stays kind of bubbling, simmering in my children. I also actually was just telling my mom, I love doing Christmas cards and hand addressing them and sitting for a moment and thinking about those people for just a moment. It makes me feel like I'm connected to them. I'm actually so silly that, I just mailed my Christmas cards a few days ago, and I got up today and I thought, some people are getting my Christmas cards today because it's been a couple of days. And I just love that feeling of like, for a second, we're connected no matter where they are. So the feeling of connection that happens a lot in the holidays is very special to me.
Almost made me cry talking about Christmas cards, and they've always seemed like a chore to me. See, look at that. It's so fun to share these things with each other and to get new perspective on things, and not in a comparative way. In fact, I feel like in listening to each of you, I'm not thinking, oh, I should be doing that, but rather I'm delighted in learning a little bit more about you as individual wives and women. And I'll just say that my all-time, this isn't Christmas unless ... is I have to watch It's a Wonderful Life. Right? I have to watch Jimmy Stewart running through Little Bedford in the snow saying, I love you, you old town, you know, and that's
adorable.
It puts my life into perspective. I feel like it recalibrates me every single year, because as traumatic as 2020 has been, as like an unfluffed, pathetic little victory
wrapped in toilet paper.
Yes.
And masks for ornaments.
And masks for ornaments.
Good idea.
Masks and toilet paper. Get that vision, ladies. Masks and toilet paper of the unfluffed fakey tree with a stick going down the middle.
So appropriate. As much as the year might be represented in that, there's so much still to look forward to and to be grateful for. And that's what It's a Wonderful Life is all about for me, is reminding me that it is indeed a wonderful life. Thank you all so much for spending this time with me. We hope we've been helpful to you, and let's all say it together. On the count of 3, ready? We're going to say, you know what we're going to say. 1, 2, 3. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for listening. That was so much fun. I'm glad that you got to know my team a little bit. They are a very important part of the WifeSavers course and community. And it really is a community of brilliant, loving women from all over the world. I know you'd fit in perfectly there. And what a perfect time to get involved right at the new year. Think about it at wifesavers.org/membership.
Home is with you wherever that may